Hey guys, what's up? What's good? Sorry to come to you with such minimalistic makeup on right now. No, it is currently 2:30 a.m. I just got done doing a look with the new hypercolor palette from Suva, but I just wanted to hop on and do this intro really quick because this is going to be mainly voiceovers. I'm just showing you how I take and edit my iPhotos. It's really like nothing that fancy, so I almost feel silly making this video, but I did a poll on Instagram and it was the top most requested video. So I have a few like technical videos in mind that I want to do, so I guess this is going to be like the first of the series, if you will. So yeah, that being said, let's just get into things. I did first want to say I shoot all my photos, and this video right now I'm filming on a Nikon D5200. So this is what I use for everything that you see on my Instagram and my YouTube, unless it's like an iPhone video. And I currently have on the 18 to 105 millimeter lens right now, but I do have some attachments that I use for lit photos and like glitter pictures, which I'll explain if I get into those videos later. So now we're gonna cut to a clip of me actually taking an iPhoto. It was from the day that I was doing my benefit cowboy thing, so I was like a cowboy before that. I don't know if you can tell in these videos, but just a warning. As you can see, I already changed into my robe, and this is a lot more realistic as to what goes on outside the little square crop of Instagram. Also, you can see my desk is next to my washer and my dryer. Sorry about that, it annoys me too. Please ignore the clutter. So for the actual photos, I just hold my camera and I make sure that I have the mirror on because I like the reflex that it gives in my eyes. And then I'm using this quick attachment thing to like balance my camera on the top of the mirror. It just works, what works for me. And then I just start taking the pictures. I take them mostly from the side. You'll see, like, if you look at me here, I don't have a crazy looking highlight, but in the photos I do. And that's because I make sure to turn the points where the highlights are to where the flash is going to hit. And as you can see, I'm also using the flash on the camera. I don't have another flash, or I don't use the ring light. I have a ring light, I just kind of prefer the harsh lighting. And I've seen a lot of other people say that they don't like it, so to each his own. But this is an example of what I don't do, is like take them straight on like that. Again, you can do that if that's your style. I just prefer how my photos look when my head is really to the side like that. And as far as posing, I always just recommend lifting your eyebrows up so that you can really see all of what's going on your eyelid, and not closing your eyes fully, but just like squinting them a lot. So you look kind of weird taking the pictures, but it works. So the rest of this tutorial is going to be done using Lightroom and Photoshop. If you're a creator of any kind, I seriously recommend looking into these if you don't know how to use them. They're incredibly useful and you can use them to do literally pretty much anything. So we're starting with Lightroom because I really love this star rating feature that they have, and also how I can look at these photos in a like thumbnail format. This is kind of more like what you're going to see on Instagram, so I kind of like how I can get a glimpse of what they look like down here, but then also get the big picture. So the first thing I'm going to do is scroll through these photos, and as you can see, this is what they look like uncropped. Obviously my other eye looks pretty wonky, and what I'll do is star them. So you see this one has one star down here, so I'll go through, and any one that I think is good I'll put a 1 star on. I think this is the one that I actually ended up posting because obviously this was a while ago. I've already edited this photo. I'm gonna reset it to the original for you so you can see what it looks like. This is the exact one that I posted. So that's what the full-size photo looks like. Okay, anyway, so we'll go through, find the ones that we like, put 1 stars on them, and then you can come over here and put it on star rating. Again, this was from my cowboy picture. So the ones that you starred will show up first, and then you can see that these are the 4 photos that I have starred, and then I can go through there and choose which one's my favorite from there. And I think that's the one that we ended up using. So the first thing I always do is obviously crop the photo, put it on 1 by 1. You don't have to do 1 by 1, but I kind of prefer a square crop. And then I just like to make sure that the whole eyebrow's in frame, kind of get it as centered as I can, double click. And then over here, I'm gonna mess with a few things as far as the lighting and the color before we take it into Photoshop. I usually bring down the shadows just because I like how that darkens up the lash band and shadows, exactly what it says. I usually bring up the highlights a little bit, a good bit to be honest. Sometimes I'll lighten up the photo, like in general, I'll bring up the exposure a little bit. This one really doesn't need it. It's a pretty bright photo. And then I always bring up the saturation a little bit, anywhere from like 10 to 15. Past that, you see you start looking orange and crazy. I would say the most max I would ever go up to if it was a really dull photo would be 30, but I feel like this, even here, it just has the look of too much saturation, so I'm gonna put it at like 15. And I guess all of this is really personal preference, and then I like to bring up the vibrance a little bit. For this photo in particular, I think I'm gonna bring down the blacks a little bit more just because it's a pretty like neutral photo, so I like having it very contrasty. And then once I have it looking how I like, I'm gonna come over to the photo, right click, edit in Photoshop. Okay, so the things we're gonna be going over are spot healing, skin blurring, how I kind of like fix up my lash line a little bit if I need to, and how I brighten my eyes if I want to as well. So first thing we're gonna start off with is spot healing, and you always wanna work on a separate layer than your background layer. That way you can take it off, delete it if you don't like what you've done. So to duplicate your background layer, if you're on a Mac, it's Command J, and then come over to the spot healing brush tool, and you can change the size of this. You don't have to come over here. You can change the size of it using your left and right brackets on the keyboard. That's what I always do. And then to zoom in, you do Command plus. So what I'm gonna do here, first thing I wanna spot heal out of this photo is this freaking pimple by my eye. So I'm gonna make the brush like a little bit bigger than the pimple. Go over it like that. Next thing in this photo over here, you can see I have some eyebrow hairs that I think kind of distract from the picture. So I'm gonna show you how I would edit these out. Since then, I have waxed my eyebrows, but I just brought my brush size down to the size of the hair, and then you just kind of draw a line on top of it. You don't want the brush to be too much bigger because then you can get some weird looking stuff in here. But as you can see, if I come over here, if you click on this eyeball, that takes away the layer. So that's what it looks like before and now. So I can go through here and edit out some of these hairs. Like if you want to not wax your brows at all, you could completely wax them in Photoshop. However, honestly, this takes so much more time, so it's really easier to just wax your eyebrows. So my mom is a photographer, and she's the one who taught me how to like edit photos and everything. And what she would always say is like, when you look at a person passing by or walking by you, you're not gonna see all of these tiny little imperfections. But when you're looking at a close-up photo, of course you can see every single little imperfection. Editing it is just kind of giving you the same picture that you would get in real life almost, because you wouldn't be looking at it closely enough to notice all these little things. And she always taught me that editing a photo is just as important as how you take it and stuff like that, and retouching does not need to be a bad thing. I think I'm really against like editing makeup, but editing stuff like blemishes and skin smoothing, I think just helps enhance your photo and give it that more like retouched, professional look. I don't know. Some lashes have these crazy hairs on them, and as you can see, this one has this one wonky lash. I don't think I actually edited this out in the one that I posted on Instagram. Next thing we're gonna do is skin smoothing. Again, we're gonna do this on a new layer, so Command J. And the biggest reason I like using Photoshop is because I feel like when you're using Facetune and stuff like that, it just takes like a normal blur to your face when you do the skin smoothing. What I'm gonna show you how to do here brings the texture through the smoothing so that you're just kind of blurring the skin tones together, but that you're still seeing your pores, and it really doesn't look unrealistic. So the first thing that we're gonna do, it's gonna look crazy before it looks good. Do Command I, which is gonna inverse your photo. And then come over here to the like layer mode, I think, and put it on overlay. And then I'm gonna go filter, other, high pass. Here you can decide how much you want it to be blurred. Obviously it's not gonna be blurred over the whole image. Like we're gonna mask it and change it in a little bit, but I would say that is a lot of blur, so like 1920-ish. So we'll click OK, and then we're gonna go filter, blur, Gaussian blur. And I'm gonna put this on like 8 or 9, and this is the step that's bringing that texture back through. So you can see I still have wrinkles in my skin, you can still see hair showing through, you can still see my pores, but it does have a blurred effect. So we're gonna click OK, and then to change this so that it's not over the whole image and so that we can paint it on where we want, I'm gonna go over here and hold down Alt, Option, add layer mask. And then you can see this black is the layer mask. I'm gonna get the paintbrush tool and get white because the layer mask is black. So we're gonna paint on white in the areas that we want the layer mask to show through. And then you can just start painting on the areas where you want the blur to be applied. So obviously outside of your eyeshadow, just around the eye, on the skin. So I feel like you can see that's not even a really dramatic difference, but let me zoom in and show you the difference. This is my most insecure area, okay? I'm zooming in on it for you. So this is before the blur, this is after. You can see it gives it a nice blurred effect without making it unrealistic. I feel like a lot of the blurs you see on Instagram are like super fake. So that's my favorite way of doing that. And then if you want to lower the opacity of it, of course, you can come over here and change how dramatic you want that. And then what I'm gonna do is Command E, which flattens that layer into this one. So now all of my changes are on this layer 1 and the background is the original image. So if I click this off, that's our original image. And that's our edit. It looks so much nicer. Okay, I'm gonna make another layer, Command J again, and I'll come over to the burn tool, zoom in on my lash line a little bit. I don't always do this, like this picture is pretty good to be honest, but sometimes if you're using like a really white shadow or maybe your lash is just like not as close as it should have been maybe, and you can just kind of go over the spots where you feel like aren't filled in as much, and that's really not dramatic, but that's before, that's after. So it just makes it look a little bit nicer and a little bit more polished. Again, I'm gonna flatten that into the first layer. Okay, and the last thing I'm gonna show you, if you zoom in on my eye here, you can see the mirror, which is what I was talking about. When I was taking it, you can actually see the camera if you zoom in like all the way. Do you see that? That's the camera right there. Okay, anyway, if I want my eye to be a little bit lighter, because sometimes these big lashes really, you know, will make your eyes look dark, what I'll do is come over here and click new layer, and that just creates a blank layer like with nothing on it. And then I go to the paintbrush tool, I'll make this pretty small and draw on here, and I know this looks crazy, but hang on. And then I'll change that to overlay, and when you zoom out, you can see it kind of gives a pretty effect, and we're gonna make it look softer too. So go to Gaussian blur again, and I'm gonna just blur the edges of that a little bit so it looks softer. I think that looks good. And then I usually bring the opacity of it down to like 30 or something like that. So not a big difference, but it adds a little bit of brightness to your eye. So this is the final before and after. I feel like it's not actually that drastic, but then when you look at the final thing, it really does make it look a lot nicer. And then from there, I just save it and airdrop it to my phone and post it on Instagram. So that is pretty much the rundown of how I take and edit my eye photos. If you have any questions, I will definitely answer. I get like no YouTube comments, and if you're watching this far, you're awesome. So thanks! Let me know what video you want me to do next. And that is today's video. I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye!